The substation, man. Okay, let's talk about who could replace. Who will replace Robert Saleh? I think most people expect it to be Gus Bradley. I think it seemed like the Niners sort of set this up. Like you bring Bradley and Saleh in at the same time in 2025, knowing Saleh's going to leave after 1 year. Let Bradley watch Saleh on the job, and then let Bradley replace him the year after he's gotten to a feel for all the players and Saleh's style of coaching them. Uh, Easy, but I don't like that. I mean, Gus Bradley isn't Robert Saleh. Gus Bradley's a lot older than Robert Saleh. He doesn't have. I mean, I know he's a very energetic, positive guy, but it's not the same, and he's not as good of a play caller, and he's not as good. He's like a more extreme version of Robert Saleh, like just rushing 4 and just playing zone coverage and a lot of single high coverage, a lot of cover 3, a lot of the stuff that Pete Carroll and Gus Bradley were running in 2011. That is, it's a very conservative, vanilla defense. Gus Bradley. You thought Robert Saleh's conservative and keep everything in front of you and bend but don't break. That's really Gus Bradley. I don't like it. It's not for me. Then I've also seen people say, well, maybe they can sort of like create the next D'Amico by promoting KJ Wright. And I could see the logic there. And I'm not going to write off KJ Wright because I know he was a very good player and a very cerebral player. And a lot of coaches think highly of him. Niners clearly think highly of him. And when the Niners promoted D'Amico Ryans back in 2021, I scoffed at it. And I was like, how can you make this guy the defensive coordinator with no experience and the team is Super Bowl ready and blah, 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 blah. And like, he wasn't great the first half of his first season, but by the end of it, he was. And then the next, now he's D'Amico Ryans. So if that's KJ Wright, then great. I just want to point out that D'Amico was a quality control coach for one season in 2017, and then he was a linebacker coach or the assistant linebacker coach along with Johnny Holland from 2018 to 2020. So he was a position coach for 3 years. KJ Wright has been a quality control coach for 2 years, 2024 and 2025. He hasn't become a position coach yet. And I don't know why. I have no idea why. Ryans became one after 1 year. Wright's been here for 2 years and hasn't become one yet. So he'd be going from defensive quality control coach to defensive coordinator. I can almost guarantee you that won't happen. It's a bad look. If the Niners felt that KJ Wright was almost ready to be a defensive coordinator, they would have promoted him this past offseason to something, assistant linebacker coach. So I don't think it's going to be him. That feels like another Nick Sorensen move, giving the job to someone who really isn't ready for it. And Nick Sorensen is never going to be a defensive coordinator again because he got that job. He wasn't ready. He bombed. And now he's like pivoting to special teams. If you give this job to KJ Wright and he's not ready for it, if you give it to him in 2 years, he might be a great defensive coordinator and future head coach. But if you give it to him now and he fails and gets fired, he might never get another opportunity and you might do him and the team a disservice. He might be ready, but I don't think they think he is. Otherwise, he wouldn't be a quality control coach right now. So, again, I think they're probably going to go Gus Bradley. But I'd like to think that that's their, extreme safety choice. Backup choice. And that they're really going to conduct a widespread interview search and get the best guy. Like last year, they didn't mess around. They're coming off a 6-11 season. They were terrified, I would imagine, for their jobs. And they got Robert freaking Saleh. Kind of saved everything. Now, I don't know exactly who's going to be available, but the first guy that comes to mind for me is Jim Schwartz. I talked about it last night in my little instant reaction, whatever, instant analysis. And I know he's interviewed twice for the Cleveland Browns head coaching job. And if they get him, then he's not an option, obviously. But I just don't assume. No one wants that job. Maybe he wants the job in Cleveland and no one else wants it. Maybe that's why he'll get it. But assuming he doesn't get that head coaching job, he's a little bit older. He's been a head coach before. I think it'd be perfect for a couple of reasons. If the Niners want to stick with the wide 9 because you have Chris Kasarik and Nick Bosa and Fred Warner and they're all comfortable with it, whatever. If that's what you want to do, If they want to scrap the wide nine, that'd be really cool, actually. But I don't expect that whatsoever. Chris Kaserik's here, the wide nine's here. Bosa's here, the wide nine's here. If you want to stick with that, then why not get the godfather of the wide nine? That's Jim Schwartz. You know where Chris Kaserik came from? Detroit. You know who his coach was? Jim Schwartz. When I say he was the D-line coach there when they had Ndamukong Suh and what was it? Vanden Bosch. Kyle Vanden Bosch. Remember him? So I think that would be great. And what I like about Jim Schwartz as I think he could be an upgrade over Robert Saleh in the sense that he's more aggressive than Robert Saleh. He'll call more man-to-man coverage than Robert Saleh. And I like man-to-man coverage. Me and Robert Saleh have always disagreed on this, and I understand where he's coming from. It's a philosophy thing. He doesn't want to give up big plays. So he'll concede yards on the ground, third down conversions. It's just a very passive way to call plays. And I think in the big picture, he thinks, well, look at the scoreboard at the end of the day. Fine. But I think sometimes you got to be a little bit more aggressive to get off the field in certain key situations. And I think Jim Schwartz is that kind of a coach. He will call more man-to-man coverage than Robert Saleh will. And I think the Niners have the DBs to pull it off. I think that the Niners DBs might even be better in man-to-man coverage and zone coverage, considering none of them are actual playmakers, but all of them are. All of them have 4.4 speed. So I think Jim Schwartz would be perfect. And one more thing about Jim Schwartz that I like, beyond just his play calling style, it's the leadership. It's the leadership. He's a former head coach. He's a very strong personality. He's a man's man. He's a leader of men. And I think he'd be good for Kyle in the sense that he's older than Kyle. I mean, he's been coaching since Kyle's been in freaking college. He kind of owns Kyle. He's 9-2 against Kyle. And I would imagine on the sidelines during the weeks, during meetings, sometimes they might disagree about things, and Jim Schwartz might say so. And I think that would be good for Kyle. I thought he really grew a lot this year. I think it would show that he has matured, that he could handle a coach on his staff like Jim Schwartz. Let him do his thing. Let him run his defense the way he wants to, and let him have input on the whole team because he's been a head coach, and you need input. You don't need a guy like Nick Sorensen who's terrified and has nothing to say and nothing to add and no way to help. And that's why I don't really feel like Kyle's going to get Jim Schwartz. He's too threatening. He'd have too much to say. He'd have too many opinions. He might be critical. I think they're going to go with Gus Bradley, who, tells great stories. He's positive. People like him. Didn't people like Nick Sorensen? Wasn't that why they hired him? He was great in the meeting room. He led those meetings. He led the turnover meetings. People love those meetings. Just like Gus Bradley, man. They love his stories, his Saturday night pregame hype speeches. But it's funny. You hire a guy that everyone likes, and then by week 8, if the defense isn't playing well and your team isn't winning, they don't like him anymore. And then you got to pivot to a coach who's more demanding. It does feel like it's going to be Bradley, right? He can't leave the Niners to go with Saleh because that would be actually a step down. He's the Niners' assistant head coach. He can't. It's not technically a promotion to go with Saleh and become a defensive coordinator. He's under contract. So the Niners have him. I just think it's a big step down from Robert. I think Gus Bradley's a big step down from Robert Saleh. The Raiders had him, and they were like, yeah, no, the Raiders. And I'm telling you, that's why my friend Kevin, who I hope is watching, Kevin Ruma, shout out Kevin, Bishop O'Dowd, 2006. He made a great point. He said, in a way, the Niners beating the Eagles in the first round of the playoffs was a blessing in disguise for Philly and kind of a curse for the Niners because Philly had to be honest with themselves after that game. You lost in the first round of the playoffs. You're dysfunctional. You have to make big changes. So they did. They fired Kevin Patullo, and they might trade AJ Brown, and they're going to do things way differently next year and see what happens. They're probably going to hire like a really good offensive coordinator, not some fucking bum who's never done it before, who's already in the organization. They're not going to do that again because they lost in the first round of the playoffs. If they had beaten the Niners and then played the Seahawks and gotten smacked, maybe they say, you know what? The Seahawks are really good and no one expected us to do this. And we're going to keep Kevin Patullo. He's, let's run it back. But that's what the Niners did. They somehow beat a dysfunctional Eagles team and then got mollywopped by the Seahawks. And now they're patting each other on the back saying like, damn, no one expected us to do that. And that's, we're ahead of schedule. That was supposed to be a rebuilding year. Why would we change anything? We just had the most successful season. Let's just promote Gus Bradley. We have the people. That's what killed me. And go back and watch Brock Purdy yesterday in the locker room. So someone asked him like, why do you think this team is set up for success next season? Why do you think this team can win the Super Bowl? He's like, because we just got the guys, man. We got the guys in here. I really feel it. We got the guys in here, man. It's like, isn't that what we learned in the divisional round against the Seahawks? Wasn't that sort of like the major takeaway from that loss? That you don't got the guys? If you had the guys, you wouldn't have lost by 35. Maybe you lose by 10 or 14. But you lost by 35.